Let's go inside these numbers to talk about why they're on the upswing, who's buying guns, and what impact all of this is having. I'm joined from Ithaca, New York by Robert Spitzer. He's written 5 books on this topic. The most recent is titled Guns Across America. He's also the chair of the Cortland Political Science Department at the State University of New York. We want to thank you for joining us. One gun executive called U.S. President Barack Obama the best gun salesman in America. So is this trend irreversible? It seems any attempt to rein in gun sales just results in more gun sales.
Well, there's a couple of big points to make. I mean, gun sales have gone up recently, that's true. Chiefly, it's occurring because it's what's referred to as political sales, and people in the gun industry use that term. There are people who go to buy guns to make a political statement because they don't like Barack Obama, because they're afraid that more gun regulations might be imposed, and frankly, there are people who are looking to buy guns to add to their collection. Now, looking at the gross numbers, you might think that America is armed to the teeth and that more and more Americans are buying more and more guns, but it's really the reverse. For about the last 40 years, gun possession in America has been gradually declining. In the early 1970s, about one American home in two had at least one gun in it. Today, it's about 30% of all American homes own at least one gun. The other numerical fact is that the number of guns that the average gun owner owns has increased dramatically. So back in the 1960s, the typical gun owner owned about 2.5 guns. Today, the typical gun owner owns 8 guns. So most of those gun sales that we see currently are people who already own guns who are going to buy more.
Interesting. Well, regardless of the politics of this issue, there's a lot of money being made as a result of these spikes in gun stock prices. So who's making the money? Is it individual investors, mutual funds? Who's actually putting the money in and reaping the profits, so to speak?
Well, the money, of course, comes from those who are engaging in the buying and selling of guns. And the industry itself, though, is not huge. If you add the total sort of fiscal sum for the gun industry, including the bullet market, it's around $13–14 billion, and they generated profits of about $1.5 billion within the last year or so. So on the scale of industries, of companies of all varieties and sorts, it's really not a very big operation. And so you can have a relatively small change in the market involving maybe not that many people and then have a spike in sales.
But there's been this consumer push for their mutual funds or retirement plans to divest from gun stocks. What degree is that actually happening, and what impact can that have, do you think?
I think it's happening in the very, very small degree right now, partly because if you have a portfolio with numerous companies in it, those elements of a given portfolio that would be involved with the gun industry would be really tiny, minute. I mean, Apple, by comparison, is gigantic compared to the entire gun industry, for example. But there have been calls to divest from the gun industry and gun companies. I think a little of that is starting to happen, but I don't think it's happening a lot, at least not yet.
Robert, you've written a lot of books on this topic. What is the one thing that surprised you along the way as you've done your research on this?
Well, there's been a lot of surprises along the way. I've actually been involved with gun activities. I'm not only a college professor who studies these matters. Certainly, the zeal with which gun owners subscribe to gun habits, gun traditions. I would say maybe the thing that surprises me most, though, is that when I talk to gun owners, first they initially recoil at the very mention of gun control, but when you talk to them and say, well, what do you think should happen? Gun owners typically tend to be people who say, well, look, there should be fairly strict controls. You shouldn't be able to get a gun if you're a felon. You should be required to have gun training. You should keep your gun properly locked and stored away at home, things that many people don't do. That is to say, most gun owners actually recognize the value of tougher regulations, but because of the political environment, their initial knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh no, we don't want more gun controls.
Interesting. Robert Spitzer joining us from the state of New York. Thanks so much.